Every single plant I bought said it was perfect for my hardiness zone. Full sun, zone appropriate, cold hardy. And yet, winter came, spring showed up, and half my plants never did. For a long time, I thought that meant I was bad at gardening. Turns out, I was just misunderstanding what hardiness zones actually mean. Hey, I'm Brandon, and this is Garden Growth Hub, and today, Groby is helping me unpack one of the most understood ideas in gardening, hardiness zones. Not what they are, but what they don't do, and why following them perfectly still doesn't guarantee success. And because it's seed starting season, we'll start there, where zones kind of matter early. And we're gonna zoom out into a part nobody warns you about. Established gardens, perennials, shrubs, and the expensive heartbreak. Groby calls this episode the zone myth, and honestly, fair. This surprised me when I first realized it. Hardiness zones don't actually tell you when to start seeds. They don't tell you when the soil is warm enough, when the seedlings are safe to go outside, or when the frost is done being rude. Because zones aren't about spring, they're not even about growing conditions. Zones are about survival, specifically winter survival, but they still influence seed starting indirectly. Your zone shapes your average last frost date, how long your growing season really is, and how much margin you have for mistakes. So when I'm starting seeds, I use hardiness zone as a calendar anchor, not a timing rule. It tells me the edges of the season, not the exact moment to act. Groby calls this seasonal gravity.
Your zone pulls your timeline. It doesn't schedule it.
And if you're like me and you've tried re-Googling the same stuff every year, this is where I use SproutLog. Not because it's magically smarter than the internet, but because it holds my location, zone, and season context in one place. So I'm not rebuilding my brain every March. You can still Google it, which is totally fine. SproutLog is just a working memory. When most people first learn about hardiness zone, it feels like a safety net. You look up your zone, you buy plants that match it, and in your head you think, as long as I stay inside these lines, I should be fine. I absolutely thought that. I'm in Southern Ontario, Zone 5B. So if a plant tag said Zone 5, I felt safe, covered, done thinking. But zones aren't promises, they're constraints. And confusing those two causes a lot of quiet frustration. Because when a zone becomes a promise, you stop asking questions and actually keep plants alive. Here's the part that clicked way later than it should have. Hardiness zones are based on one thing only, the average lowest winter temperature in your area. That's it. They don't account for wind, snow cover, freeze-thaw cycles, soil drainage, spring temperature swings, summer stress, or microclimates in your yard. So when a plant says hardy to zone 5, what it's really saying is, if everything else goes well, it might survive the coldest winter, not thrive, not look pretty, not forgive chaos, just might not die immediately.
Zones tell you what won't survive, not what will thrive.
And this is where things get spicy, because winter doesn't kill plants with a single number. Winter kills them with a combo attack. Let's talk about the moment the zone myth really hurts. Seedlings are cheap. If they die, you lose a few weeks and a few dollars and a bit of dignity. But perennials are the adult phase of gardening. You spend real money, you plant them with hope, you water them like they're your new roommates, and winter hits, and then May shows up. And that $300 garden bed you built because everything was zone 5 just sits there like a graveyard. No shoots, no leaves, no signs of life. And this is where people go, I followed the rules, why did it fail? That's the trap. Hardiness is not a yes and no label. Hardiness is a cumulative stress test. A plant might survive negative 20 degrees Celsius once, but it might not survive 5 freeze-thaw cycles in wet clay soil with temperature exposure and no snow insulation, and then an early warm week that wakes it up, followed by a hard freeze again. That's not zone 5. That's the winter obstacle course. This is where the confusion really lives, because zone-correct plants don't fail dramatically. They fail slowly. They struggle, stall, decline, and you're left wondering what you missed. So here are the big silent killers zones don't warn you about. This one hurts because the freeze-thaw cycles. You know those winters where it warms up, everything melts, and then it snaps cold again? That's not just annoying for us. That can physically damage plants. Tissues expand and contract, buds swell too early, roots get stressed, and that plant runs out of stored energy trying to recover. Wet soil and cold. This one hurts because it feels unfair. A lot of plants don't die from the cold. They die from being wet, wild cold. Cold soil, poor drainage can cause root rot, crown rot, and just slow suffocation. So a plant can be hardy to zone 5, but not hardy to zone 5 with wet feet. Wind is dehydration. Winter wind can dry out your evergreen needles and stems. The ground is frozen and the plant can't replace that moisture. It's basically getting dehydrated while trapped. That's why you'll see browning, scorching, dieback, even when the temperatures were within the zone. Sun on frozen tissue. Bright winter sun warms tissues during the day, but it freezes hard at night. That daily swing can crack bark and damage cambium. Again, not a zone issue, a condition issue. And first-year plants are fragile. Hardiness ratings assume established plants, but first-year perennials are still building root mass, stored energy, and resilience. Same genetics, less stamina. So you plant something in the summer or fall, it never truly establishes, then winter hits, and the tag tragically wasn't lying, but the timing was.
Hardiness assumes maturity. Babies are weak.
And that's why so many gardens look amazing in their first season, and then suddenly random plants don't come back. It wasn't random, it was a stress test. Okay, this is the part that makes people feel like they just unlocked a new cheat code. A zone 5 yard is not a consistent zone. It has pockets. You can have a zone 4 corner, windy, exposed, no snow cover. A zone 6 pocket against the south-facing brick wall that holds heat. And the wet zone 5.5 area that is basically a seasonal swamp. Same property, same postal code, different survival conditions. This is where gardening stops feeling like gambling and starts feeling like pattern recognition. So here's the simplest way to read your yard. Where does snow drift and stay? That's insulation. Where does wind hit hardest? That's stress. Where does water sit after rain? That's rot risk. Where does spring melt first? That's early wake-up risk. Where is reflected heat and shelter? That's a warm pocket.
The map is your region. Your yard is your reality.
And once you notice this, you stop blaming yourself because you realize you weren't failing at gardening. You were missing the second layer of context. This is the mindset shift that changed everything for me. Hardiness zones aren't there to tell you what to plant. They exist to tell you what not to waste your time on. They narrow the field. They don't pick the winner. Once I stopped treating zones like guarantees and started treating them like guardrails, failure stopped feeling personal. Learning started feeling logical.
Zones remove impossibilities, not risk.
These days, I still start with my zone, but I don't stop there. When I use SproutLog, the first thing I set is my location in hardiness zone. Not because it makes decisions for me, but because it keeps me in the realistic range while I think. Seed starting timelines, plant out windows, overwintering expectations. You can absolutely do this with Google. SproutLog just holds the context so you don't have to rebuild it every season. It's a working memory, not an authority. And the reason I'm obsessed about this is simple. The easiest way to kill plants is to forget your own context. After you check your zone, ask better questions. Where will this plant spend winter? Exposed or protected? Does it hate wet soil? Is it its first year? Does it wake up early in the spring? Is this spot wind blasted or insulated? Am I planting it somewhere that melts early, then refreezes? Those answers matter more than the number on the tag. This is where gardening stops feeling like luck and starts feeling like you're learning the rules of your own yard. Hardiness zones didn't fail my plants. I failed them by expecting certainty from a system that only offers boundaries. Zones are a starting point, not a safety net, not a promise. If this helped untangle something that's been quietly frustrating you, I've got more videos coming that build on this, including one that explains why a bright room might not be what your plants need. And if you've ever lost a perfectly zone-appropriate plant, you're not alone. Groby's been watching. Grab the free tool in the description if you want, they're linked below, or just keep binging. Because once you understand this stuff, gardening gets way less stressful. Grow your own way.